Okay, so let's try and unpack this a bit. What if the whole story we tell ourselves about sex, about satisfaction,
What?
what if it's been, well, fundamentally upside down for ages? Like maybe we're working off some really flawed ideas about intimacy, about pleasure. Today we're diving deep into Ian Kerner's book, She Comes First, The Thinking Man's Guide to Pleasuring a Woman. It's a book that really promises to challenge some long-held assumptions for, I think, every one of you listening.
Yeah, and for this deep dive, we've pulled together quite a few sources to try and get the full picture. We've got a really detailed Reddit summary and review that gives us some practical takeaways, some very honest personal thoughts, plus the publisher's overview from HarperCollins, and also a pretty comprehensive book overview from Shortform. So our mission here today is to pull out the most crucial insights from all of these, not just to listen, but to really dig into how they challenge those traditional ideas,
Yeah.
and hopefully give you a fresh, science-backed look at female pleasure and how it genuinely impacts relationships for the better.
Absolutely. And it's clear this book, it really struck a chord, didn't it? It's become this modern classic in sexual wellness. Sold, what, over 500,000 copies? And even got nods from people like Gwyneth Paltrow. But what really gives it weight, I think what makes it feel authentic, is Kerner's own story. He didn't just decide to become an expert out of nowhere. He actually wrote this after dealing with premature ejaculation himself. And instead of, hiding that, he just leaned right into it, became an expert specifically on cunnilingus, and then shared what he learned. That vulnerability, it adds a layer of humility, I think.
It really does. And the book itself is, well, it's a radical shift from how things are usually discussed. It's not just a manual. It's been called a sharp, science-backed, and culturally aware manifesto. That feels right. It argues pretty forcefully that female pleasure shouldn't be an afterthought or, a bonus if there's time. It should be the starting point. It really centers female anatomy, female pleasure, in a way that's been, frankly, missing from the mainstream conversation. And importantly, it unpacks the history, the psychology, even the power dynamics behind why this focus has been so rare. It's about shifting a whole cultural view, really.
And you see that shift reflected in how people reacted, right? Like that Reddit user you mentioned gave it a 9.3 out of 10, acknowledged it was superstitious focus, so mainly looking at straight couples, but then immediately said the core wisdom is,
Yeah.
universally powerful. And then there's that Gen Z woman's take calling it hilarious and healing, found validation in the idea that, yeah, penetration isn't the gold standard. And crucially, clitoral stimulation isn't extra, it's essential. That lasting impact across generations. It really says something.
It absolutely does, and it gets right to the heart of the problem Kerner identifies. Our culture's view of sex is just overwhelmingly male-centric. Penetration is usually seen as the main event, the goal. And often sex is considered done when the man finishes. It's striking how deep these ideas run, and the results. Women are often left unsatisfied because, physiologically, it just doesn't line up for many of them.
Yeah, Kerner really zeroes in on these core issues stemming from that male focus. And they almost sound obvious when you lay them out, but maybe we hadn't really seen them clearly before. First, he talks about the clitoral necessity. Simple, but profound. Most women, and it's a big majority, like 75%, they don't orgasm from penetration alone, period. They need direct clitoral stimulation. But this basic fact, it's been largely ignored. Sex ed, media, porn often misses it entirely. It's kind of amazing. Then you've got the huge time discrepancy. This really lays it bare. Men, on average, orgasm within about 2 minutes of stimulation. Women, they generally need over 21 minutes. And that's 21 minutes of direct clitoral stimulation, not including foreplay. Just think about that gap. It's massive. And the third piece ties it all together, the refractory period problem. So men often lose arousal pretty quickly after ejaculating. They enter this refractory period, which means often they tap out. They're physically done way before their partner has hit anywhere near the time needed to climax, especially given that 21-minute average. You see the issue. Focus on penetration, which doesn't work alone for most women. Add the time difference, plus the refractory period. Yeah, it's a setup for dissatisfaction.
Right, exactly. These default assumptions, these traditional scripts, they effectively block women from getting the stimulation in the time they need. It's almost by accident, by misdirection. And those statistics you mentioned, they really paint a stark picture of the outcome. It begs the question, right? If the physiology is clear, why the disparity in orgasm rates in heterosexual encounters? Well, studies do consistently show heterosexual women orgasm less frequently than their male partners. And interestingly, compared to women in lesbian relationships, the gap is significant. About 74.7% orgasm rate for lesbians versus 61.6% for heterosexual women, even with a familiar partner.
And some researchers suggest, I mean, it's a theory, but it suggests this might be because that expectation to prioritize male pleasure just isn't there in the same way in lesbian relationships. It really highlights Kerner's point about shifting the focus.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because Kerner just flips the script on what most of us, well, didn't learn about female anatomy. Can you sort of peel back the layers on this idea, this concept that the clitoris is not just a little button, but this internal pleasure powerhouse?
Absolutely. This is fundamental. Kerner's point is that the clitoris isn't just that small external part you can see. That's like the tip of the iceberg. It's a whole complex internal organ. It has over 8,000 nerve endings, double the penis, by the way.
Yeah.
And it has these deep internal structures, sometimes called legs, that extend throughout the pelvis. It really is an internal pleasure powerhouse. And fundamentally, all female orgasms originate from stimulating the clitoris because its nerve network is spread throughout the vulva and even into the vagina.
Wow. Okay. Not just the tip, the whole iceberg. Internally, that's a major mind shift right there. So can you help us map that out a bit, understand the landscape? Where are the key zones for pleasure?
Yes, understanding the specifics is key for, well, targeted pleasure, as Kerner puts it. He explains that the most sensitive nerve endings are concentrated externally, on the vulva. That's where primary stimulation happens. Only a relatively small bundle of clitoral nerves can actually be stimulated from inside the vagina. And this anatomical fact is why he emphasizes cunnilingus. The external nerves are incredibly sensitive, much more so than the penis, and the tongue offers a kind of soft, gentle, precise stimulation that's ideal. So mapping it out, he details the key points, kind of in order of sensitivity, though they all play a role in arousal. Right at the top, the most sensitive part is the clitoral head or glands. This needs really careful, gentle touch, especially at first, to avoid discomfort. Then, just below or around it, you have the front commissure. That's where the shaft, the internal body, sort of becomes visible. Think of it like a hood. And right under the head is the frenulum, where the inner lips meet. These three are sort of the central, highly sensitive targets.
Okay, got it. Head, visible shaft area, and where the inner lips meet below. That's clearer. What about the surrounding areas? Do they matter?
Oh, absolutely. Moving outwards, you have the perineum, that stretch of skin between the vaginal opening and the anus, often overlooked but definitely sensitive. Then the labia minora, the inner lips. They swell and become more sensitive with arousal. And the labia majora, the outer lips, which also contribute to arousal and protection. He also mentions other spots, briefly, like the fourchette, the fold at the bottom of the vaginal opening, the mons pubis, the pubic mound, even the anus. All can play a part. The main takeaway is it's a whole landscape, a network, not just one button.
Right. So we've identified the problems, these sort of systemic issues, and we just explored the actual anatomy, the incredible complexity there. But Kerner doesn't just diagnose, does he? He offers a solution, a completely different approach. He calls it coreplay, this idea that oral sex isn't the appetizer, it's the main course, which sounds, well, revolutionary, frankly. But it must challenge a lot of ingrained habits and ideas. What kind of resistance or misconceptions does he anticipate people might have with this coreplay philosophy? And what's the mindset required?
That's a great point, because the resistance stems directly from what we've been talking about, that deep-seated belief that penetration is sex. Kerner's whole coreplay idea directly confronts that. He argues cunnilingus should be central, the primary path to consistent female orgasm. And he really stresses that the mindset is more important than technique. Forget fancy moves. The biggest misconception is seeing oral sex as just a quick warm-up. He hammers home the need for patience, for finding a rhythm, consistency, and crucially, being fully present, attentive, responsive to your partner. It's about letting go of that performance pressure tied only to intercourse.
Okay, so it's a complete shift in priority, making her pleasure the main focus, not an add-on. How does he break down the actual steps then, moving from building anticipation to, well, the main event?
He lays out a clear three-stage process. Stage one is foreplay. And here, anticipation is everything. This isn't just 5 minutes of kissing. It's everything before you get to direct clitoral stimulation. And it's vital because women generally need that buildup to get fully aroused. Remember that number. Research suggests over 90% of women orgasm if foreplay lasts at least 21 minutes. So the mantra, as Kerner says, is literally slow it down. And foreplay techniques, they're broad. It can start way before the bedroom, dropping hints, sharing fantasies. Then tender touches hair, forehead, feet even, moving to more sensual touch breasts, nipples, inner thighs, the outer labia, and importantly, using artificial lubrication if needed. It just enhances sensation and comfort as arousal builds. Don't shy away from it.
So building the mood, the mental and emotional arousal, not just physical, setting the stage properly. Okay, so once that anticipation is built, after slowing right down, what's next? What's the main event Kerner champions?
Right, when she's clearly aroused, you move to stage two, Cunnilingus. This is what Kerner calls the main event, unequivocally. This is where the focus shifts to building arousal further, steadily, bringing her towards orgasm. And he advises dedicating real time to this, anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes after foreplay. This isn't rushed. He breaks it down further into about 4 steps within this stage, making that first gentle contact, establishing a rhythm that works for her, maybe introducing some manual stimulation alongside the tongue, and then guiding her to orgasm with sustained, focused attention. Patience and observation are absolutely key here.
And it doesn't stop there, which is also revolutionary because so often things just end after one orgasm, especially the man's. Kerner says that's not the finish line for women. What about afterplay?
Yes. This third stage, afterplay, is crucial and often neglected. It acknowledges that women can have multiple orgasms. So, continued clitoral stimulation after the first climax is often needed for further satisfaction or just continued pleasure. His advice is simple. No rushing to the finish line. Don't just stop. Allow maybe a few minutes cool down, return to some of those foreplay activities, kissing, embracing, keep the intimacy flowing. Then you can transition to other things, maybe penetration if you both want that. He even notes certain positions, like woman on top facing you, might help facilitate more orgasms by allowing continued clitoral pressure. It's about sustaining connection, avoiding that abrupt stop that can feel, well, emotionally jarring.
It's really striking how much cultural baggage we carry around pleasure, isn't it? And how Kerner's work tries to shed it. I mean, our culture ignored female pleasure for so long. You mentioned Freud calling clitoral orgasms immature and anatomy textbooks literally leaving out the clitoris or getting it wrong until the 1990s. It's staggering, really, a huge blind spot. Kerner's book feels like it's trying to, well, set the record straight after centuries of oversight.
Absolutely. And if you zoom out, connect this to the bigger picture. Prioritizing her pleasure. Adopting this coreplay idea, it isn't just about better sex, though it is about that. The ripple effects are much bigger. It builds trust. It deepens emotional intimacy. Ultimately, it leads to more long-term satisfaction for everyone in the relationship. When pleasure is approached intentionally, equitably, everybody wins. Sex becomes this powerful way to connect, not just a physical act.
So let's wrap this up. What does this all mean for you listening? This deep dive into She Comes First really brings home a few key things. The absolute necessity of direct clitoral stimulation for most women, the huge importance of slowing down for extended foreplay, and seeing cunnilingus not as a prelude but as coreplay. And maybe most importantly, the transformative power of actually understanding female anatomy for creating mutual satisfaction. It means moving past old, unhelpful scripts. It means choosing to redefine intimacy for something deeper, more equitable, and ultimately more satisfying for everyone.
Yeah, and maybe it leaves us with a question to think about. Considering how deep these traditional ideas about pleasure run, and how much conscious effort it takes to challenge them, what other parts of our lives might benefit from that same kind of critical look? Where else might we be holding on to established assumptions that aren't actually serving us, assumptions we could challenge to find deeper understanding and connection?